Hi, my name is John Raymond Smith, and this is an assessment for exercise rehabilitation for the return to sports performance and a case study. Uh, what I've got in front of me here is a case scenario of Mel, who's a 25-year-old netball player who's been diagnosed with Patella tendinosis. And I've got the data on her range of motion, some of her strength, and performance data. What I've got to come up with is some exercises that will test her ability to go back and play at the level she wanted to play before. So I've got to give some tests, and for these I've included 5 tests, and some of them are some of the original criteria she was tested with in the beginning. The knee extension seated, doing the single leg squat on a decline board, single leg squats, jump landings, and calf raise. So let's get into it here. The first test is a single leg decline squat on a 25-degree slant board. It's a test that's been recommended for the assessment of what we call jumper's knee, and it's very standardized. So after I warm the person up and they know what to do, we start off usually standing on the slant board, nice and straight, hands on the hips, back straight. And we always go for the unaffected leg first. So ask them to bend forwards as far as they can, close to 90 degrees if possible, and then come back up again. What we do after that is test the opposite leg. And again, I want to know if anything hurts, if there's any problems. So we have a thing called a VAS score. I'm looking for range of motion as well and the quality of movement. For every test, there's a pro and a con, but this test is nice because it's easy to standardize. It is an eccentric test for the knee moment, and we can look at pain during the decline squat. And we ask for a VAS score. While we're going into eccentric loading at that angle, it increases the moment by over 40%. It also decreases the ability of the calf muscles to stabilize the tibia because there's no dorsiflexion, and can be used by the athlete to self-monitor progress. The cons, of course, you need a board. The athletes may need extra weight, like 10 to 20 kilos in a backpack, because they might have had very good response to rehabilitation, but under load, they might still need sort of further testing. It's a static test and does not measure any dynamic scenarios. We could do some bounding exercises prior and test them after that. My next test is a single leg hop test. It tests the confidence in the limb, force generating capacity during push-off, load tolerance on landing, pain, and neuromuscular control. Again, after a nice warm-up and familiarization with the exercise, I get the athlete to stand behind the line with the unaffected leg first, and he gets ready to jump as far as he can forwards, so jump as far as you can and hold that for 2 seconds at least. You're not allowed to put your foot on the ground, take another hop, otherwise we cancel that one and we have to do another one. They get 3 attempts, and then we of course do the same thing on the affected leg. And then we compare them. The nice thing about this test is that it's nice and simple and easy to measure, and you can get a nice percentage and reliability with the same sort of test. The pros, the results are reproducible and can be retested. The subject must produce force and ground reaction forces on landing. It'll test the interlimb symmetry, and it can be applied directly to netball as they only allowed one step after landing with the ball. The cons, of course, is only one hop, so it might not be adequate for patella tendinosis there. But it can be applied in combination with other hop tests for better outcomes. We also need space for testing. My next test over here is the single leg heel raise test. And what we're testing here, of course, is the plantar flexors of the foot. So basically gastrocsoleus complex. And again, once they're warmed up and know what they're doing, I ask the athlete to hang on to something just to keep a bit of balance. The opposite leg should be flexed at the hip, approximately 45 degrees, 90 at the knee. Ask the person to push the big toe into the ground and lift the heel up as high as they can and bring it down repetitively until they fatigue or complain about something. Once they've done that, we do the same thing on the affected limb and compare both sides. The nice thing about this test is that it's easy to perform, doesn't require any equipment. It will test strength to some extent, range of motion, see how far you can get the heel off the ground, and how many repetitions before you fatigue. And you can compare it nice and easy to the other limb. The cons it's not a proper strength test, and we're not going through the full range of motion in many cases. So this test was done on the floor. You can also do it on a step and increase the range of motion. It does not discriminate between the gastrocsoleus, and the tester must keep an eye on the test so the person does not bring the heel too far down or lose balance, etc. My next test is the quadricep strength test. The nice thing about this test is that it tests only the quadricep muscles. So there's no other muscles involved in this. And again, once we familiarize the athlete with the machine and what we're going to do, I bring the pin on the weights full lock so the person cannot move it. It's immovable at this point. I put the pad just above the malleoli and the transducer in front of the shin. So when he pushes into it, I get the measurement on my little gadget over there. So we always start off with the non-affected leg, and he pushes as hard as he can. Push for 4 seconds and relax. What I want him to do is actually wait a minute, and then I'll retest that 2 more times. So I do that 3 times to get an average. And then once that's finished, I will do it on the other side, which is the affected side. Otherwise, it's very hard to, bring the transducer across. So I'd rather be nice and standard. The knee extension 90 degrees isolates the quadricep muscle. It will compare the strength between the 2 limbs. And it does not include the kinetic chain like I've mentioned before. The only trouble, it only isolates one angle, so we're not doing any other angle at this point. The test will be more accurate with a force plate. It does not measure angular velocity, and I can't test the eccentric strength at this point. My next test is a single leg squat. It predicts kinematic, as you can see, in running, cutting and landing, and quite often distinguishes between people with and without joint pain. There's a thing called the qualitative analysis of single leg loading, and developed by Harrington and his crew there. So I'll go through that in a minute there. Now, of course, again, before we start, we warm the person up. Explain what they're going to do and how they're going to do it. I usually give a demo first. It's much easier. And they have a few goes at this. And we start off with the non-affected leg first. So what they've got to do there is squat to at least 45 degrees, no greater than 60, and over a period of about 5 seconds. So this is only accepted if they sort of work within desired sort of flexion angles. Thing about this exercise, that compares many things in the body. So you can look at neuromuscular control, and you can see on the screen there on the left we have the optimal, and of course the other side we have suboptimal, and you can compare and score the left and the right side. So we can see what happens when you do the exercise in the different parts of the body, so the arms, the torso, the pelvis, and other areas there. So you can see how they lean and compensate during that exercise. There's not too many cons, I don't think, for this exercise, unless they're having some problem somewhere else in the kinetic chain. So maybe another injury in the hip, back, or ankle, etc. My next couple of slides are just a little bit about netball and what they have to do during the game. So it's quite demanding from a physical point of view. And then I've got some test results, what my findings are. So I'm just going through these a little bit. And after that, I've got basically my reference for the presentation. Thank you very much. Results for this.